All right, today we're talking about the race to replace Governor Eric Holcomb. A ways off, but a number of potential candidates seem to be lining up already on both sides of the aisle. I'm joined today by Insider's Adam Wren. In your Importantville newsletter, you've set out the first power rankings here in this race for governor. So we're going to go through these here today. Let's start with the Democrats here. You've got in the 6 through 10, you've got Shelley Yoder, Josh Owens, Bart Peterson, Tom McDermott, J.D. Ford. Tom McDermott just told you he actually may be running for Senate, right?
That's right. We talked earlier this week, and he is certainly eyeing a run against Republican Senator Todd Young.
Let's go through some of the other names on our list here as we look at candidates 3, 4, and 5 in your power rankings. We'll move ahead and look at number 3. You've got Christina Hale, who, of course, ran for House this past year. Jennifer McCormick, Eddie Melton. Some interesting names there who may or may not be looking at a race for governor, right?
Yeah, we know that Hale is the deputy Democratic director for candidate recruitment. She's someone who gets around the state, talks to a lot of people. Jennifer McCormick is someone that Democrats are increasingly talking about as someone who could run for governor.
And she's been out on that tour touting the American Rescue Plan. I actually just spoke with her on Friday about her sort of campaigning more or less here with Democrats and whether or not she's actually switched parties. Here's what she told me.
Right now, I feel like the Democrat Party, yes, I have switched parties. I feel like they are very people-centric. They're very people-oriented. I think they are showing a lot of compassion. I have no plans right now of running for anything, but I've always been clear that I will help those who are really doing the right thing for people and for kids and for our communities.
It's not ruling it out there, really. Anytime someone says they're not running for anything, and she has now said she switched parties, somebody to keep an eye on there, maybe. We'll see.
Absolutely.
Here's your top 2 on the list.
That's right. You've got the mayor of Indianapolis, who's sitting on nearly $2 million in the bank, could run again for mayoral re-election in 2023, but someone who has eyed statewide office in the past. And you've got Joe Donnelly, the hardest working man in Indiana politics, Democratic politics to be certain. He's all around the state. He was in Terre Haute on Friday. That's right. Someone who wants to, has the ability for the center of the party to kind of win.
Let's look at the list here for Republicans that you've lined up. 5 through 9 here. Trey Hollingsworth, Eric Doughton, who's already said he's running, Jim Banks, Scott Fadness, Jim Merritt, who has talked with us about a potential run. Let's look at the next group here. You've got 2 through 4. You've got current Chair Kyle Hupfer, Todd Rokita, the Attorney General, Senator Mike Braun. You've definitely got all 3 of these guys on the news a lot. And then your number 1 candidate potentially on the list, Suzanne Crouch, Lieutenant Governor. She's raised a lot of money here in recent years.
Yeah, she's raised a lot of money. She's been close to Holcomb. She comes from Evansville, and I think has a lot of sway within the party right now.
Okay, let's bring in our panel now, the rest of our panel, to talk about these power rankings. We're joined by former Democratic State Party Chair Robin Winston, Tony Samuel, who was 2016 Vice Chair for the Indiana Trump campaign, and Dr. Laura Wilson from the University of Indianapolis. Let's just start with you, Laura, just broadly on the fact that we're talking about the 2024 race for governor is kind of interesting, but I don't think we're getting too far ahead of ourselves, though we're often known to do that in political punditry circles. These candidates are already positioning themselves in a number of key ways.
They absolutely are. And in fact, have probably been doing so for months, if not years. The reason this is an important conversation is because we know it won't be Holcomb, but we also know there's been a lot of talk at state government recently in terms of the power of the governor, perhaps versus the attorney general, perhaps versus the state legislature. This is obviously an important office, and I think the last 14 and 15 months have just reaffirmed that. So as we look at these names floating about, and no doubt people will be hearing more of some of these names in the future, and I imagine it's quite possible that future candidates, if not the future governor of Indiana, is one of the names we're discussing right now.
Yeah, very well could be the case. Tony, I'm going to turn to you next because Laura made that point that all of these legal battles and everything playing out right now in this post-pandemic or end of the pandemic process here, it's caused a lot of political friction within the Republican Party that's sort of already perhaps put candidates in a certain trajectory or put them in a lane that might lead them one way or another to try to appeal to a primary electorate too in 2024.
Yeah, well, I would say that it's still a long ways from now to 2024. It is good and fun to talk about. What I would look at, a couple different factors. One, who has the name ID and the ability to continue getting the name ID, getting media attention, between now and 2024, and also have those folks been getting it already? Todd Rokita certainly has as Secretary of State, as a congressman running for the U.S. Senate seat in 2018, and he is now in his battles with the governor, and I think he'll continue to. He's adept at that. Same with Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, who's also a great fundraiser. I was at an event for her earlier this week, and very well attended. She's doing that all across the state. She's very popular with local officials. And then there's others. There's another tier that are maybe less well known, but very smart, very successful people. I would put former Senator Jim Merritt in that category, and Eric Doden from Fort Wayne, who used to be one of the leaders at IEDC. Then there's the folks that maybe just the inside baseball people that follow kind of on the inside might know. And I put Kyle Hupford, the state chairman, who's very close to Governor Holcomb, in that category. Yeah. But one thing that I want to mention, there's a couple of folks that are big money players, and they're also in our congressional delegation. Those are Congressman Trey Hollingsworth and U.S. Senator Mike Braun. They might be looking at the governor's race, and that would make it, really interesting between big money.
Right,
and
right. So real quick, who would you put at the top of your list right now?
I put Suzanne Crouch at the top of my
just
list
as Adam did.
Okay. Experience and her popularity around the state.
Robin, looking at the list that Adam put together, the power rankings for the Democrats, what did you make of that list? What changes would you make to it? Who do you think's at the top of that list right now?
Well, thank you for making me soon to be chairman of the Hurt Feelings Club. There's no way to avoid this. I would think Joe Donnelly is at the top of the list. Yeah. We were with him in Fort Wayne. He's in Terre Haute tonight. I talked to him this afternoon. He's driving over 70 today to make his way there. Very well known, very well positioned. Keep Eddie Melton in mind because of the diversity he brings to the ticket, not just by race, but by being from Lake County, where between Lake and Marion, 1 of every 4 votes in the state are cast. So please keep that in mind, and also keep former Attorney General Karen Freeman Wilson in mind, former mayor of Gary.
Okay, no, good names to keep in mind there for certain. Adam, as you look at what people are telling you about who may or may not be on this list, as we said with Lori, it's just kind of fascinating that we are talking about it already, but certainly a lot of these battles, to Tony's point, with someone like Todd Rokita, certainly puts him out front and center, and he's certainly been positioning himself front and center on a lot of issues here lately.
Absolutely. I was told by one Republican that he's trying to put together a coalition of sort of outstate Republicans outside the Donut County to support him. And so, we cannot not watch him the next 4 years. One of the reasons why we're jumping to 2024, I think, so quickly is because in many ways, 2022 is a foregone conclusion for Republicans because of the current environment that we're in.
Todd Young, you feel like he can't be beat from this vantage point.
I think he's of all of the incumbents up for re-election in 2022, as you look across the map in the U.S., I think he's the most difficult incumbent to beat.
He did have, Todd Young, a piece of legislation this past week, bipartisan piece of legislation dealing with competition with China, the Endless Frontier Act, which didn't have a ton of, it was bipartisan, but didn't have a ton of Republican support, Tony. That was a bill Senator Braun voted against and a number of others in this potential gubernatorial primary from this far out, spoke out against. Jim Banks, for instance, also opposed that bill from Senator Todd Young.
Well, I think it's a good bill. It did get bipartisan support. I think, as you noted earlier, 68 to 32. Anything that's putting a focus on China and our rivalry, we'll use that word for now, with China, and increasing education and training for American workers to take on the Chinese and tech and so many other ways. China has made it their mission to overcome and pass the U.S. militarily, economically. Okay. We have to be aware of that, and this is a step in the right direction.
All right, Tony, thanks. Our panel's going to be back coming up in just a few minutes for this week's Winners and Losers. But up next, we're talking about the race to vaccinate more Hoosiers, especially in younger age groups. We'll talk with local health officials up next.